It's on there, I'm sure. Last time we had like a 30 seconds of us talking before we did, like we're doing now.
Yeah, go for it then.
Hello and welcome to another live stream from the only source of information that you need to not only survive the current apocalypse, but actually enjoy it. And today's subject is going to be NPCs. If you don't know what that is, it's like the abbreviated form of non-player characters. And I never heard of this phrase before. I guess about a year ago, Ala Toledo was asking me if I heard about it, and he said no. It stands for non-player characters. It's like a gaming term. So you're character number one. You're the first-person shooter. You know when you're looking at these video games, you'll just see like every now and then you'll press a button or pull a lever, and the hand will come up with a machine gun or a knife or something, and then there's another guy over there somewhere that's interacting with you. He's trying to kill you or shoot you, stab you or something. But it's like when this game is going on, there's furniture everywhere. Like there might be cars or signage or buildings or mailboxes. One of the pieces of furniture that they have in these video games is people. So they have people milling around, seemingly not involved in the game, but they're just there. They're there for furniture. And those are the non-player characters. Now, it's not like that word is only used in gaming. It's kind of like a cut down. If you've got somebody that's, on the internet that you don't like or whatever, you call them a non-player character. They're just like, you've heard me use the term mindless drone. It's the same thing. Mindless drone, non-player character. I also call them citizens, citizens of the empire, and as opposed to human beings. So you've always got human beings, citizens of the empire, human beings, or non-player characters. And so I've always kind of alluded to Bible verses about this, and that's what I'm going to do today. I'm going to actually go ahead and quote the scriptures that seemingly are about what we would call mindless drones or NPCs, non-player characters. Matthew chapter 12, verses 43 through 45, Jesus is speaking about people that are filled with unclean spirits. And he says, when the unclean spirit has gone out of a person, it passes through waterless places seeking rest, but finds none. Then it says, I will return to my house from which I came. And when it comes, it finds the house empty, swept, and put in order. Then it goes and brings with it 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they enter and dwell there. And the last state of that person is worse than the first. So also will it be with this evil generation. So you see what's going on here. Jesus is telling people that a human being is like a vessel for spirits. You can be filled with a wicked spirit, or you can be filled with the clean or Holy Spirit. But apparently, according to this, you can be empty. So you can, if Jesus were to cast out the demons and the demons leave and the person gets his life together, it's possible that if that person does not fill his self with the Holy Spirit, that those demons will come back and refill that void. And in fact, it says that the demon that goes out, or the wicked spirit that goes out, will return with 7 of his friends when he realizes how nice his house has been cleaned. So the next verse is Matthew chapter 23 and 25 through 6. And in this verse, Jesus is talking to the conservatives. Every culture from ancient Egypt all the way to U.S. culture has always been based on what we think of as a 2-party system. So you've always got conservatives and liberals. There are always different names. I think in the United States, the conservatives are called Republicans and liberals are called Democrats. But that's not how it always was. They had different names early in American history. I think the Federalists were like the conservatives, I think, and the Whigs were the liberals. But before that, in England, they had a two-party system, and it had its own names. And then before that, of course, you've got Rome, Greece, Phoenicia, Assyria, and Egypt. And probably if you were to go into other cultures that were not part of the Mediterranean area, like in the Americas, they probably had a similar system with the Incans, Mayans, and Aztecs. So chapter 23, verses 25 through 26 says, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you clean the outside of the cup and the plate, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. You blind Pharisees, first clean the inside of the cup and the plate, that the outside also may be clean. So Jesus is painting a picture for these religious Jews that was something they'd be familiar with. They were really obsessed with, making everything look good on the outside. So they would wash their finest china, or their bowls and pictures would be really, really pretty and clean on the shelf. And what Jesus is saying, the inside needs to be clean. If you clean the inside, the outside will automatically be clean. And he wasn't talking about bowls and plates, because he didn't say on the inside your bowl is full of rice. He said it's full of self-indulgence and greed. These are not food items. This is not something you actually put in a bowl. He was comparing the Pharisees, the Republicans, to bowls. But he said similar things to the Sadducees. So it's not like Jesus took sides against the Republicans or took sides against the Democrats. He really didn't have any love for any of them. I mean, he loved them to die for them. But he was constantly pointing out how disgusting they were because of the way they were on the inside. And in fact, this is kind of like this line of reasoning is going to explain something that a lot of times is difficult to explain. But we'll go ahead and read the next verse. It says at 27, woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, which outwardly appear beautiful, but within are full of dead people's bones and all uncleanness. So think about that. It's like a grave that's being painted. So it's even though it looks good, there's nothing in there but dead people. And so that's like leading to the next verse, where Jesus is approached by somebody that wants to follow him. And they said, now when Jesus saw a crowd around him, he gave orders to go over to the other side. And one of the disciples said to him, Lord, let me first go bury my father. And Jesus said to him, follow me and let the dead bury their own dead. So, we're talking about his father dying, and he's telling them, let the dead bury the dead. So how is it that dead people can bury the dead? Well, remember, when Jesus was talking to the Pharisees, he said, you're like whitewashed graves, that there's nothing in there but dead man's bones. So he's accusing the Pharisees of being dead. And he also, like I said, he just got finished telling them that the inside of the vessel was important. And we already know that a vessel can be full of wickedness, full of cleanness, or it can be empty. And so an empty vessel might be considered a spiritually dead person, or an NPC, non-player character. So now we're going to go read of what a person should be filled with that will distinguish a person filled with the Holy Spirit from a person filled with a wicked spirit, or a person filled with either spirit who is different than an empty person. So in talking about these spiritually empty people, he calls them of the flesh, which is similar to selfish, but it also is of the flesh. Just that's all you're concerned with is the flesh, because you have no spirit. So Galatians chapter 5, verses 16 through 23 says, I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh. For the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. So he's talking about people that are filled with the Holy Spirit not being subject to the law. But the fact is, we all are subject to the law, but the people who are empty, that's what their life is based on. It's based on rules and rituals and regulations. It's not based on doing what's right. And so you'll see that these people who really, really believe in the system, the people who vote, allegiance to flags and pray to statues and attend all of the local town meetings about political issues, those people are sticklers for legalism. And it's all they know because they don't have a spirit to guide them into doing what's right. They have to do whatever will keep them from being punished. And that's the last verse I have, Ala Toledo. I'm all out of stuff to talk about.
Okay, so hellos. We have first off from Jaboom Blue says, "Hey everyone, may you have peace to all." Terry Burns says, "Good morning." S. Coulter says, "Good morning, y'all." Patricia Ribrick says, "Hi, y'all. I'm sick, very sick, awful flu." Discernment File says, "Sending
Uh,
healing prayers over to you, Patricia." Next is Moving On says, "Good morning, Henry. Hope you are feeling blessed. All well here." Marilyn Jacob Simmons says, "Thumbs up. Hello, everyone from Georgia." Prune Picker says, "Howdy, y'all." Bug Out Bubba says, "Hey, I finally made it." Sandra Tirado says, "Hi, everyone. Um, Yay, I made it this week. Nice to get more of Henry's timely wisdom today. Crazy week again." And Rick Ballard says, "Howdy, y'all." And then I guess we don't really have any questions yet. Nobody wants to talk about anything, I guess. But why don't you mention? I always ask you when this topic comes up about animals and your thoughts about animals having souls or being empty vessels. What do you think about that?
yeah, I think animals. Well, it just depends. There's a verse somewhere. It's in one of the letters, I think. It might be in Hebrews, but I think it's in like First Corinthians or Second Thessalonians, something like that, where the writer is talking about different kinds of flesh having different kinds of glory. And I've read it before, and I've kind of gone through and looked at the words as they appear in the original or the earliest languages, which the earliest we know of are Greek. But the words seemingly are talking about living things, like the spirit that's in a human is different than the spirit that's in an like a bird or a fish or a land animal. And maybe he even says from the glory differs from being to being. So from animals to animals, the glory is different of the spirit. And it also says that even the stars have different spirits, and they vary in glory from glory to glory. And I mean, I don't know for sure, but it seems to me that what it's talking about is that the planets themselves are living things. They're sentient. They're aware of their presence. And animals are too. Animals, birds, fish. And you think about it, even like insects. I'm very careful not to kill an insect unless it's harmful and I cannot catch it. Mosquitoes. I don't walk around with a little plastic cup catching mosquitoes and taking them out because basically, if you do that, you kill them in the process. But like fish, I remember like the last fish I ever caught, which was probably 5 years ago. I had it laying there in the bucket, and it was looking up at me, and it was obvious that his eye was following me. I felt really bad about it. And in fact, I was there with Frosty. Frosty was still alive, and he took that fish home. And I was like, I wasn't going to just throw it back in because we weren't going to catch enough to make a meal. But I felt bad about it. And every day I eat meat in some form or another, and I know that there's going to come a day after the resurrection when I'm going to run across some of them animals I ate, and I'm going to have to apologize to them, because I really believe that at the Tower of Babel, it says that's where the languages became confused. It doesn't say that's where human language became confused. It says that's where the languages became confused. And remember, in the stories just a few chapters earlier, Satan is talking to a serpent. So if she was talking to a serpent, and if Satan really was a serpent, it means that at one time humans and serpents could communicate. I mean, that's the way I feel about it. I don't know that that's true because there really isn't that much information about it. And not only that, but there were still people that could talk to animals afterwards. You know, the story of Balaam of Balak. He was a prophet of God. He really could do the things that, you know, other prophets could do. Wasn't a prophet of the false gods. He was a prophet of the true God. He could see the future, and he could give curses and blessings. And on his way to give a curse to the nation of Israel, his donkey stopped in front of him and said, you know, why are you doing this? You know, don't go further. And Balaam started beating his donkey. And he says, you know, have I ever lied to you before? You know, why are you beating me now? I've carried your burdens. I've carried you, and here you are. You're hitting me because I'm telling you, don't go do this curse again. And Balaam never once said, "Wow, my donkey's talking." He had a conversation. You know, it was like it was nothing. So, you know, as time goes on and we recover those abilities, we'll have some splaining to do.
Along
But at the same time, you know, the animals are eating one another too, so their spirits are just as messed up as people's.
along those lines, Discernment Files says, I hope God brings back all our pets when we go to heaven. I miss my dogs dearly. And then he asks, is the Hosea prophecy playing itself out with all the mass animal deaths?
Hosea, prophecy about animal deaths. I can't remember the prophecy. You know, with me, it's like when you say Hosea, I'm thinking automatically, okay, Hosea, Malachi, Joel. Those are called the minor prophets. When I read that, I read it as like one book, even though it obviously isn't. And I can't keep those separate in my head. It's like the letters. You know, I'll always just say this is from one of the letters. Same thing with the Gospels. I can never tell. I can never remember if something's in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John. Well, John I can because it's different than Matthew, Mark, and Luke. But a lot of those books kind of run into each other mentally for me.
Next comes from Jacob Blue. No, Jaboom Blue. Jaboom Blue he says,
Jaboom blue.
Yaboom Boo. he he says some people are said to be like unclean animals.
Yeah, I think when someone's filled with an evil spirit, that's what that's talking about. Well, you know, actually, the words clean and unclean are used for food items, and they're used for humans. So humans are called unclean. In other words, for food, it would be unclean for a human to eat a human. That's unclean. Although that's not spelled out in the Bible, it's understood that humans don't eat humans. But there are animals that you could eat and animals you couldn't. And so, like, here's one of the only example I can really think of is that pork is an unclean animal, right? And when Legion was living in that man in the cemetery and Jesus went to cast out the demons, Legion says, well, you know, are you going to cast us out now, you know, before it's time? In other words, it wasn't time for the resurrection. The demons are supposed to just continue doing harm all turns, and they apparently were aware of it. And Jesus said, okay, I'll put you into those pigs. And so the spirits went out of the man. They went into a herd of swine, and the swine, I think they dove off of a cliff into the water. I think something like that. And so I was thinking, you know what that proves? Not just that wicked spirits can live in a man. Wicked spirits can live in a hog, and it may be biological. You know, the closest thing to human flesh is pork. And I think a lot of with doctors, they actually have parts from pigs that they use than humans. Pigs are raised for meat, but they also harvest out, I think, the valves, heart valves. I don't know how they do that, but they take heart valves out of pigs and they put them into human hearts. So, there's probably, like it says in that verse, that there's different spirits and different glories. Glory changes different from one individual to the other, from one animal to another, and even from the stars. So, pork may be very similar to people, which might be why God didn't want us to eat it, or didn't want them to eat it. Now that the law has been done away with, it's actually okay to eat people if you want.
The Sermon Files clarifies that the Hosea prophecy said that God will take away all the fishes and beasts of the field. So I don't know. I
There's a
guess.
yes, yes, Mr. Toledo.
Oh no, I was just saying that I think there is reports of some deaths within animals, like mass deaths and stuff of birds and stuff going on.
Well, that it seems to me, okay, like in the very beginning, there's a lot of verses about man being allowed to eat leaves and fruit, so things that wouldn't damage trees. If you pick a piece of fruit off of a tree, it doesn't harm the tree. Same thing with a leaf; the leaf will come back, but it doesn't say anything about cutting trees down. You're not really allowed that. And then later on, that's clarified because there's a prophecy that says once Satan has done away with, the trees will rejoice, saying, "Look, there is no one left to cut us down." And I think that there's several verses about Satan where it calls him Leviathan. Leviathan is like a dinosaur name, and says, "I shall put my hooks in your nose and drag you out of the sea, and with your fish clinging to your scales, and the birds will come down and feast on your flesh, and the land animals will do something." But it's all about Satan causing so much destruction to the earth that species of animals just die off. And so that's already been going on for thousands of years. No one ever recorded the first animal that went extinct, but there are ancient writings about different kinds of animals that we know don't exist anymore. All the dragon slayer stories from around the world. They have carvings on cave walls and stuff of antelopes and rabbits and squirrels and pterodactyls. you know, there's no way to deny that exists. And some of these drawings are really, really good. So it's obvious what these people are drawing. But also, just in later years, like when the dodo was brought to extinction, they recorded that happened. There was a lot of animals that naturalists wrote about that no longer exist. This extinction has been going on forever, and it's been brought about by humans. There is not a single provable extinction or extinct. There's not a single extinction recorded ever that was not caused by man. So there are times when it says that an animal died because all of the fruit that it lived on went extinct. Well, the fruit that went extinct was something that man, destroyed. So it's still everything that goes extinct. It always leads back to man.
Next hello comes from the hippie lady, says hello, hello. And about the animals, Patricia Ribrick says, maybe the animals have a pure heart and will say, I'm happy I was able to feed you life. Presumably, I guess, after
Yeah.
eating.
Well, if you spend enough time reading about human spirituality, the history of human spirituality, you find that most indigenous peoples, when they would kill an animal, they would thank it, as they were killing it. And that probably goes way back to an early tradition when humans could still talk to animals, and the animals would say, "You're welcome." Hey, I'm just grabbing at straws here.
I think it's sounding pretty good so far. So next comes from,
So are you buying into this stuff, Al Toledo?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much true. I mean, we have to balance between how we eat animals and whether we don't. And I mean, I assume you're still a meat eater, right? So,
Yeah, but I'll tell you what, I've killed a lot of animals and fish in my day, and always I can remember every animal I've ever killed in one way or another. And I've even accidentally killed animals. I have memories of that because I feel bad about it, which is basically, I don't even really feel comfortable eating meat from the store. And as I get older, I've always thought I have to have meat because it's the only way to get cheap, nutrients, some cheap nutrients. But, and meat's not cheap, but it's as far as getting protein, all the proteins you need, supposedly, according to the religion of science, you got to go to like an organic food store and buy these weird nuts that are really expensive. And I just don't have that option. But then again, I'm not a member of the religion of science. So over time, I may eventually get to a point in my life when I just walk away from it and then kind of monitor my health. I've got, the VA checks my blood every couple of months. So if I do something wrong, I'm sure they'll find out before I fall over dead.
Next comment comes from Jaboom Blue. Man, they killed millions of animals back in Israel. Humans should take after dogs, where they're loyal, honest, always there when you need comfort. And then he says, how did Cain and Abel know to give a sacrifice? And uh, Abel liked animal blood sacrifices, and Abel's father liked animal blood sacrifices.
Hello.
Oh, yep. Did you? I don't know. Do you hear me
Um,
still? Okay.
Cain,
Well,
I can hear you. Cain and Abel. Cain was a bad guy, and he was sacrificing vegetables. You think, well, that's the good guy because he's not killing animals. Abel did sacrifice animals, and God said that he accepted Abel's sacrifice. I don't think that God enjoyed seeing animals being killed. I don't think he enjoyed seeing vegetables being destroyed or whatever. But he says that he accepted Abel's sacrifice because Abel had a good heart. How good of a heart did he have? He was killing animals. But at the same time, right after that, it says that Cain had a wicked heart and he went on to build the first city. And I've always associated the wickedness isn't with presenting, was it grain? Presented grain or something to God. That's not what was wicked. It was the fact that Abel sacrificed what he took care of. He took care of animals and he sacrificed something he loved. Cain didn't take care of animals. He was engaged in agriculture, which is a demonic practice. I don't if you back in the day when the trees of life were still around and people could just eat what God planted for them, it was wrong to plant other things. And so that is, I think, the judgment, like what's your heart like? And Cain was trying to build cities. He was trying to establish his own food source. There's always a possibility that there was something about, the trees of.
yep. And let's see.
Satan promised Eve.
Oh, you broke up a little bit there. Let's see. Next,
Are we breaking up? Are we losing you? Or are you losing me?
yeah, I was just losing you, so I'm not sure. Maybe we'll just kind of move on from that. Next question kind of comes from Jaboom Blue. What if there was a rat infestation in your house? Would you?
Oh, I just caught one the other day. I give them back to the earth. I don't eat them. I take them out and I put them in my compost bucket right there, and then I put them in a container with a tree, a small tree, and let the tree eat the rat. And it's not that I don't like rats or mice, but when they're in your house, they're really destructive. And I'm poor. I can't just be fixing. And another thing, even if you had the money to come, if you just keep doing that, they're like demons. They'll leave and go get all their friends and bring them back with them. You won't have any place to stand. Your whole house will be full of rats before long. So yeah, I kill rats.
Next comment comes
For
from.
rats' nest before where the mom was dead, and like hand fed baby rats and took them out in the woods and let them go. Thing with you can get these traps that are humane traps for rats. And I never really catch anything in those. It's like the ones that go kabam. They seem to work.
Yeah. The hippie lady comments, I think many people are probably unclean animals. There's just something wrong with them. I can feel it, and that's what keeps me an introvert.
One of the things, I've done all the bad stuff a human can do, kind of. Like I spent my early days watching John Wayne movies, so I joined the military but I joined because I wanted to be a good guy. Well, there are other people that join because they want to be a good guy, and they get in it and they see the same things I saw. And when I saw the things that I saw, I left the military going, this is Lord Satan's empire. This is the long arm of Satan's law. This organization is pure evil. And the other guys I was in, which seemed like normal guys to me, they re-enlisted and they would go put an American flag up in their yard every day. So very obviously, some people just know the difference between right and wrong, and other people just seemingly don't. I've never ever taken sides in any of Satan's wars. You can look at like the Democrats; they're aborting babies. Oh, that's horrible. I hate Democrats. So I'm going to go join the Republicans, right? No, because if you go look at the Republicans, they wait until the kid's 18, then they kill them. There's a lot of horrible things being done by both teams, but most people will see the evils in one team and attach themselves to the other evil team. And they call it choosing the lesser of two evils. It takes kind of an empty person to do that. To me, I can't imagine. I mean, as a child, maybe, but when you're a grown up, if you go down and vote for these monsters, that's that's a spiritually dead person to even care. It's kind of weird to me that people come to my channel and they have their own YouTube channels or whatever, and they'll say, "Man, I just love your videos. I just love the way you talk about the pointlessness of politics." So you go over to their channel, and all of their favorites are stuff about how the Democrats are ruining our great country, and how Democrats are all evil, and how Democrats are burning stores down. Nothing about what the Republicans are doing. It's like even if you don't vote, if you're showing a preference for one team over another, that's illogical. Do you tend to agree with me, Mr. Toledo?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, although you did send me a link
I mean, I'm
about,
not stepping on your toes or anything. Did you vote in the last
oh
election?
no, I think it's immoral to vote. I won't be able to tell people what to do, so.
I knew there was some reason I loved you.
Well, I've always told you my story is about how I came to religion from a political route, and I realized how empty things were. And I was an atheist back then, and then I came to you, and you had this revelation for me that where you were explaining um, what a goy was, what a Gentile was, and you were basically explaining that they were um, a person without like a state. They were, they didn't have a state associated to them. And so that would be somebody that didn't vote basically. And no, I'm sorry, it was the opposite. It was like a Gentile is somebody that belongs to a state, which therefore means that the Jewish people,
Gentiles are apparently the people who were from somewhere else. They were not part of they didn't observe the Jewish law, and they were somehow exempt from it because by then, the Jewish state was controlled by Rome. But they used the word Gentile even way, way, way back, but it was about people that did live in other nations. When they would come across people that were not Jews, they call them Gentiles or something similar. The goyim.
right, the goy was I guess the Hebrew or the Greek, and then the Gentile was the Roman. But I take that, I guess, a step farther than what you're saying here is that I think if you look up the word, it basically is somebody that follows a state and belongs to a government, is somebody that's a Gentile, whether it's Jewish or not. And it just so happens that the Jews, when they first came over from Israel, they had no government. They lived in tribes, And then when they started their own government, with a king, Saul, I guess, that's when they stopped. That's when God abandoned them because, and in my opinion, they went from being Hebrews or Jews or whatever into being Gentiles themselves, because they adopted a
Well,
state.
yeah, the the thing is like as soon as he got them out of Egypt, they started doing stupid stuff, and he wanted to kill them off then. And Moses was like, no, 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 just give them an arbitrary, ritualistic, nonsensical group of laws. And so later on, in I think I don't remember which book of the Bible, one of the Old Testament books, it says that I took them out and I gave them my laws by which a man could live. But they rejected my laws, and so I gave them laws by which no man could live. I gave them the wicked laws that required that they kill their brothers. And so if you look at that, it's like, well, there's no law that says that God never gave them a law saying to kill their brothers. And yes, it did. He did. After he gave them the Ten Commandments and they rejected it, he gave them a law about how to stone somebody for working on the Sabbath or stone somebody for eating bacon. So you had to kill your brothers, but even worse than that, you had to go over property lines and kill people of different nations who are also their brothers. Let's talk about the definition of some words here. Like, people get real picky about the word Jew. Jew is short for Judean. And so when they talk about the Jews, they say, well, that's not the Jews. That's the Israelites. The Jews were Judea, but the other 11 tribes and Judea together was the nation of Israel, which, what that is that Jew is short for Judah, the person Judah. Judah was one of the sons of Jacob, who was called Israel. But he had 12 sons that the nation of Israel was based on. And so those 12 together were called Israel because the father of those 12 was Israel, just like Judah was the father of Judah. But before that, there was a man named Hebrew. And in the Bible, it doesn't say that. It says his name was Eber. But if you read the Hebrew word for Hebrew is Eber. The English translation is rendered as Hebrew. But that's because over time, languages change. They start speaking different languages, the Aramaic, then the Greek, then eventually Latin, English. So when it talks about the Hebrew people, what most people don't realize is that almost everybody there, the Canaanites were Hebrew people. Everybody around there, because, think about it. Eber had several sons. I think he had 2 that are named. And those sons, they list their kids and then their kids' kids. And you get to eventually to Abraham's generation. So everybody who was a son of Abraham called themselves a Hebrew. But by the time you get to Abraham, there's already thousands of them living all around there. That they were sons of Eber. They were Hebrews, but they were simply not children of Abraham. But even Abraham's children, he had 10 kids. And the only ones that went into the promised land were the children of Jacob. So all of these other kids that he had, there's some stories about where they went. Some of them, we don't know what happened to them. We just know that by the time Jacob came along, he had hundreds of cousins who were sons of Abraham who were living all around there. And so when they were bragging about, we are sons of Abraham, and Jesus said, well, God can make sons of Abraham out of rocks. Well, the fact is, God had already made thousands upon thousands of sons out of Abraham that were not part of the nation of Israel. They had nothing to brag about. Even the people they were killing were sons of Abraham. So while the Pharisees and Sadducees were, going around murdering these outsiders and bragging about being the sons of Hebrew, the outsiders they were murdering were Hebrews. So yeah, the law of Moses required that they kill their brothers.
I didn't mean this to get sidetracked, but few hellos here. Let's see here, who is it? Keekin says this guy is great. Bob G says free thinking is always refreshing, and then he says I'm G. Shannon Holtz says sorry I'm late. Greetings from Hungary. And old Chevy's on the foothill. He says yo. Next, kind of going back to the topic of having a soul or not, discernment file says, I think evil people have their pineal gland blocked with all the fluoride they put in the water. And the hippie lady says the pineal gland being blocked might be what's making them unable to feel true empathy, and they can't get through, and you can't get through to them.
I kind of wonder about that too. There's so much speculation about what the pineal gland does. It's in the brain. It does some kind of brain stuff. I really don't think the brain is just like what we're taught. It's not just a storage unit, part of the brain. It's supposed to allow us to communicate with one another. That's why the languages got confused. When people started doing what was wrong, they altered their environment enough that they weren't able to communicate with one another or with the animals anymore. And that scripture, I always get it wrong, but I think it's Joel. Can't remember which one. And it says that in the last days, the old men will have dreams, and young men will have visions, and women will prophesy. Basically, it's like, to me, old men, young men, and women will have dreams, have visions, and prophesy. But it's kind of picky. It puts it in that order for those groups of people. But it's a direct quote from Joel. And so we can check it, and that's the way it's presented, is that each different kind of individuals that have different gifts. I think that's talking about when the planets start realigning, we'll all start being able to see things and perceive one another. We'll be able to perceive. So right now, none of our pineal glands work, but it seems to me that some of our pineal glands are working somewhat. Like we're just spiritually stronger than most. But the rest of the people, it's like there is nothing left. They are completely incapable of having value for themselves based on how much love they have. When I think about what's valuable, I think about friends and these NPCs, non-player characters, spiritually empty people, seemingly everything that gives them value, self-worth, is like fake stuff, artificial things, money, credit score, how many kids they have, how many of their kids graduated college, what kind of degrees they have, how new their car is, how expensive their car is, what neighborhoods they live in. These people, lose sleep over trying to get further up the ladder. They want a bigger piece of Satan's free gifts. They want to do like the Pharisees said. You look good on the outside. My mom she really gets upset about my hair and the fact that I don't iron my clothes and that I don't dust every day. And that stuff doesn't mean anything to me. I don't want people to think I'm just nasty, but my whole life is worth more than ironing clothes. And the Pharisees back then, they same way. Their hair was always just right. Their clothes was always just right. They always hung out with the right people. And all of their value was, look at me. I am a son of Abraham. Look at my house. Look at these cool clothes I'm wearing. You think this stuff is cheap?
Actually, Ken chimes in kind of along that line, saying that people's hearts were hardened before there was fluoride, so it has to be spiritual.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people say that people are getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't know if that's true, but I know this. I feel worse and worse and worse. When I have to interact, it used to be I could interact with people and I felt like I had hope that I would be treated well. But over time, it's like I know that if I interact with anybody, I'm going to get hurt. And I don't know if that's because people are getting worse or because I'm just getting more and more calloused to the treatment that I have to experience or endure. But here's something to think about. When Paul went to visit the Corinthians, of course, he was talking about haircuts. He says, okay, so I have dreadlocks. And so because of that, people look down on me. They treat me like a bum. But I come here to visit with you Corinthians, and you're all treated with great honor. Why? And so the way it's rendered in our English Bibles is people with dreadlocks are not honorable. Like it's God's scolding people that grow their hair. What Paul is saying is, obviously, because I have dreadlocks, I'm not honored in civilization. And yet all of you are honored. Think about that. Why are you honored and I'm dishonored? He said that. And so you think, if you're not dishonored, if you feel like you're part of this, like somehow you can make a difference by voting or whatever, and if you feel like you've had some success at that, and if you feel like, you have a lot of friends, then it's possible that you're an NPC. Because I was beaten pretty much every day from the time I entered school till my body couldn't take beat. It's like God knew that if somebody hit me one more time, I was going to die. And so it just kind of stopped. Now they just do things to make me sad, do things to make me angry, but they don't physically beat me anymore.
Along the lines of fluoride, S. Coulter says, do you think that taking vaccines is the mark of the beast? And
The mark of the beast is it's what's inside of you. It's not like some external thing or even an internal thing will mark you. Because it's, if you get to Revelation, it talks about the mark of the beast in several places, but in Revelation in particular, it talks about it being in your forehead and on your right hand. Your right hand, your forehead. So it's the things that you do, and it's the things that you think. Because when it says on your forehead, it doesn't say on your forehead. It says between. It uses a word that means the space between your eyeballs. So I looked that up just to see what in the world was between your eyeballs, and that's where the pineal gland is. So it's like the mark of the beast is on, potentially it's on your pineal gland. I've read all these things about what the pineal gland is supposed to do or used to do, and if any of that's true, then that makes sense that our mark could be in our pineal gland. But at the same time, my whole life I've been doing. I've used money. I have a credit card. I never vote, but the thing is, I don't put my faith in this system. I just know that I have to have something to eat. That's been my objective from the time I was a grown up until now, is make sure to get something to eat and shelter. I don't like being bit by bugs or rained on. And so I had to work and make money. And, I try not to do more than I have to, but, I was in the military. How much worse can it get? But I never have put my faith in the military. I kind of, as a child, did, but once I got in it and saw that it was just another bunch of bullies, just like I experienced in high school, I was like, yeah, these are the bad guys.
I'm not sure, did you mention something about a third eye or something? Because the next comment comes from the hippie lady, where she says, keep thy eye single. The third eye? Is that what they're talking about?
No,
I,
no, I actually made a video called "Keep the Eye Single," and I guess somebody made a comment not too long ago about how the third eye. It's like, yeah, maybe the hippie lady. Somebody said, "Could you please tell me what I need to tell my relative? They'll believe me that the all-seeing eye is God." And I was like, man, I've made so many videos about how evil the all-seeing eye is. And that's what that third eye is. It's like, well, the third eye is kind of like a Hindu or Indian type thing. They would talk about the third eye. There's people that would like drill like a hole there in their skulls at one time so they could release the power of the third eye. But it says keep your eye single. That word single means keep your eye entwined, bound together. So, you've got people that get on teams, like you've got the left wing and the right wing. It's like the left eye and the right eye. You've got an eye that, according to science, the left side of the brain, the right side of the brain, one is for more like artistic things, so for things that are creative. And the other is more like military, more, whatever the word is, when you beat a kid, disciplined. You got this disciplined eye that's all just logic, like how can I get the most stuff, and who do I have to hurt to get the most stuff? And the other side is like, isn't that a pretty flower? So we have to have some discipline and we have to have some creativity. So when it says keep your eye single, what it means is keep your eye intertwined. And you know, I made a really good video about it with my own thoughts about that. They may not be 100% accurate, but I did break down like all the verses about it. I broke down each Greek word into what it actually meant. And seemingly it was about just looking at things from both sides. You know, don't just look selfishly at what's best for you. Don't just be a fool and, you know, do for everybody else, but not for yourself. Just keep everything together. Keep it all together. You have a balanced view of things. I know that sounds a little bit generic, but that's basically what it means. It's not anything more than that. It's not anything really esoteric. If you look at all seeing eye that's on the back of a dollar bill, that's like the Freemason symbol. It's not because the Freemasons are more godly than us. You know, that symbol goes way back. If you look at the Eye of Horus or the Eye of Ra, which is where that all-seeing eye comes from. So you've got the ancient Egyptian culture. They had this thing, it looks like an eyeball with a lot of makeup on it. Well, if you turn that sideways, what it is, and you got to just get a real, actual, ancient depiction of the all-seeing eye, the Eye of Ra. Turn it sideways. It's a pregnant woman with a man standing behind her and a serpent in front of her, and the serpent is penetrating her egg because in her belly you can see this zygote. It's a fertilized zygote. It's got like an eyeball. It's round with a thing in the center. Is what a fertilized human egg looks like, and that serpent is entering the woman's belly. And I've always thought, you know, that's looks like it's a story of Adam and Eve, and so I thought, well, you know what, Satan must have impregnated Eve. But even in Egyptian culture, that's not what happened. Satan or Osiris, you know, Osiris means bearer of the eye of enlightenment. That's what Osiris means. Well, there's a word in Hebrew Bibles, Helios, and Helios is translated as Lucifer. So that word Lucifer in English actually means the bearer of the eye of enlightenment. So Osiris and Lucifer are the same person. Isis, the woman, is the same as Aish Shah, which is Eve. Eve is called Aish Shah in Hebrew. And so Isis and you look at that, it's always Trinitarian. There's always like the triangle around the eye. It's three parts of Satan's empire. It's the economic system, the political system, and the religious system. The Eye of Horus, the Eye of Ra, it's the same thing. It's the god of the economy or the military, the god of religion, and the god of government. You know, that serpent. That's Satan. That's the ruler of the world.
Speaking about the third eye, the servant says he thinks it's don't be double-minded and such. And then Kiken says a dream about a stone etched with that symbol is what brought him here.
Who said that?
Kiken said he had a dream about the stone etched, and then the servant had
Yeah.
mentioned about the whole
I
concept
need to
being done.
find out who that is. I'm going to find out their real name because I haven't told that to too many people.
Oh, okay. So yeah, that's kind of how you got it, the written in stone thing, right? That's your series.
Yeah, you go back and look. I had this bizarre dream, and it was this time of year because Cruising the Coast starts today. And so I think 10, 11 years ago, I went to sleep and I had seen this documentary about how they're finding pyramids all over the world with eyeballs on them. And so I looked up why are pyramids so universal, and the teaching is, it's still to this day, is that pyramids from a day they had reinforced concrete. So to build with stones, you can't make a straight up thing. It's got to be big at the base to hold up the weight of what's on top. But that never answered the question, why do they all have eyeballs on them? You know, because you got these pyramids everywhere. It's like little stone carvings and walls of eyeballs into pyramids. And so I prayed about it. So like, God, why in the world is all these people that supposedly were not aware, the people in the Americas, they didn't know anything about the Egyptians, supposedly, until Christopher Columbus, right? But they had these pyramids with eyeballs, and I prayed about it. And that night, I had this bizarre dream about a stone carved like an eyeball. And I ain't gonna talk about it now, but the next morning I went out, first day of cruising the coast. I went and I stood in the woods with my camera, and I made my very first video that I ever made that was like a sustenance and covering video. So this is the anniversary. This is the anniversary of sustenance and covering. I don't remember how long it's been, but I think it's like 10 or 11 years. Maybe not. I think actually I was making Bible videos before that. That was the first really earth shattering one. So it may have been 9 years ago.
Going
The all seeing eye.
going back to what you said about your mom and your beard and everything and ironing your clothes. Bob G says, "Wow, that one got me. Mom would love me to shave my beard." And then Steve Lander says, "People are getting worse, in my opinion. Less respect for each other." And S. Coulter says, "People are definitely getting worse."
Yeah, they're just getting just so mindless. I look at, especially since this pandemic started, people are just absolutely going goofy. I mean, every day I get shocked. It's hard for me to make friends. I was talking to somebody the other day. They were asking, how many people are in on this? I said, well, I think 500 people watch my videos. And I said, really? You think all 500 are completely awake to what's going on? And I'm like, maybe 100. So you think there's 100 people out there that you trust? And I said, maybe one. Because it doesn't matter. Like I say, I talk to people all day long, and then they post stuff on their Facebook about how, the rebel flag it means culture and it's tradition, and Trump is going to save America. Like, you can't believe in that stuff. I know that a large portion of the population doesn't like rebel flags, so I don't fly a rebel flag. I know that millions of human beings have been exterminated by America, so I don't fly a American flag. And I know there was a time when pirates had a real bad reputation, so I don't fly a pirate flag. I just stay neutral, stay out of all that stuff.
That hippie lady, going back to the pineal gland, says when you cut the pineal gland in half, the inside of it looks like the Eye of Horus.
Yeah, I've seen that before. Well, I haven't seen it before. I've heard it before because I looked at a bunch of images of pineal glands, and they all look like they're different somehow. But I was told that it's like you can tell that it's got that makeup looking thing on it, and it's got and maybe that's what it is. When you cut the pineal gland in half, that's where the Eye of Ra comes from.
Okay, we're kind of winding up, so these will be the last comments, and then you can take us out. Matt Wilcox first says, yes, don't do the work of the beast system. And then that hippie lady says, I get worried of being hurt too, and interacting with people is just exhausting. And finally, Discernment File says, I gave up and he's a recluse just like Henry. People mistake kindness for weakness.
Yeah, he's quoting me. That's my quote, and I have it copyrighted. So be careful. No, but really, people do. They see kindness as a weakness. So there are people that will never victimize anybody, but if they come across you and you're a hermit or a recluse or something, and you're kind to them, they will take you for everything that you got. They'll kill you. There's a lot of stories I used to do when someone called me a hermit years ago. So I started doing research on hermits to see, like if there's some kind of a psychological problem with these people. And one of my friends I was talking to just the other day was saying that they always felt like something was wrong with them, and it touched a nerve with me because I always felt like something was wrong with me. I go in the Navy, and these guys just like eating it up. They're like, swab the deck, shipmate, and doing all that Navy stuff. And they're just, oh, let's clean this machine in case we go to war. They were just really, really into that junk. And I'm like, this is like the stupidest stuff I've ever done. And I would talk to them, try to reason with them, like, man, do you realize you painted that same room every week for the last 2 years? Does that really sound logical? And they were like, well, what, you don't like America? So there's like this mindset of these, non-player characters that can't be overcome. And it takes a long time to finally just admit to yourself that I'm not the one that has a problem, just because 7 billion people think, after figuring out what the Bible's about and actually having all of these verses that talk about these kinds of people, I'm like, wow, I'm really the one that's right. And the fact that everybody is against me proves I'm the one that's right. And that's basically what hermits are. Hermits are people that are filled with love. They want human companionship. They want somebody to hold. They want somebody to talk to, but they don't want to get hurt. And so they hide, like I do, and like probably most of the people that are here watching this video right now live, and a bunch that aren't, are kind of recluses, hermits. So I guess that's it, eh?
Yeah.
Did I
No,
lose you?
no, we're here. We're waiting for your final words, and you can
Okay,
take
so
us out. So
wait a second. What time is it? I don't want to short anybody. Whoa, it's exactly 12. As always, if you don't want to survive, don't listen to me. And look, Al Toledo, remind me next week to get a pipe because I'm supposed to grab a book, get a pipe, and remember we're supposed to do that. Okay, we'll pretend.